Hello, good evening and welcome. This evening we are looking at the Corruption Perception Index, and the report was out today, International Day Against Corruption. And funny enough, we are performing a notch better than we were doing before. And we want to find out, in the midst of all these hula balula that we hear in the news, merchant sales here, jida there, and yet still we are performing better. We're doing better than Botswana, we're doing better than Rwanda, and a few other countries, so we must be doing well. But how well are we doing? We're going to have a discussion. I'll have Vitus Azim, who will join us later on the phone, and he will tell us exactly how are these reports derived. It's a perception, or is it a reality? Is it maybe the situation on the ground is not as bad as it is? We'll speak to him and find out. My name is Nana Sakwao, and this is PM Express. After the break, or after the montage, if I should say, I'll be talking to Vitus Azim. Hello and welcome. Joining us on the phone is Mr. Vitus Azim. Hello, sir.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, good evening. Well, when we talk about corruption, that's well within your jurisdiction. You sleep and breathe to make sure that we minimize it as a nation. But the report has come out today, and it's indicating that we are doing better. You know, what does it actually mean, if I may ask?
Well, the ranking is, the scoring is from 0 to 100, where 0 means highly, highly corrupt, and 100 means very clean. However, no country has ever scored 100. But Ghana scored 45 in 2012, and this year has scored to 40, just 1 inch up, and ranked 63 out of 177 countries.
63.
Yes, so what it means is that when you compare to African countries, only 6 countries have done better than Ghana. But globally, it means that 62 countries have done better than Ghana. And when we say globally, it's not every country that is included. As I said, only 177 countries. And the way we arrive at the index is that we take a number of assessments by independent institutions, reputable institutions like the World Bank, the African Development Bank, Freedom House, the Economic Intelligence Unit. They have their own reports, separate reports. And what we have done is to take all their reports and pick responses on corruption and then conduct an analysis and arrive at a single index. And for Ghana, we use 9 different sources of data to arrive at that single index of 46.
And what are the 9 that we use in Ghana?
We have the World Bank, we have the African Development Bank, we have the Economic Intelligence Unit, we have...
Oh, I dropped the call there. What I'll do is I'll call for a break now. My other guest is in the studio now, so I'll call for a break, and then when we come back, we'll continue the discussion. So stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to the show. Let me introduce my guest in the studio and remind you that we're talking about the new rankings of the Corruption Perception Index, where it is out. And indeed, there's only 6 countries that performed better than Ghana. And that's, I underline here, that's Botswana, Cape Verde, Seychelles, Rwanda, Mauritius, and Namibia were the only countries that performed better than Ghana. South Africa, Tunisia, all those countries, we did good. In the studio with me is Roland Akbza, Akabza. Roland Akabza is a researcher in Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. Joining us on the phone will be Vitus Azim, who is Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative, and I think he's on the phone now. Vitus, have you joined us? Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Vitus.
Yes, I was just calling the sources.
Yes, of course.
I said the African Development Bank governance ratings, Bertelsmann Foundation's Mission Index for 2014, Freedom House, Nations in Transit, Global Insights, Economic Intelligence Unit, Transparency International Bright Place Index, World Economic Forum, World Bank Country Policy and Institutional Assessment, and World Justice Project. So these are the 9 that we use to assess Ghana, but the maximum is 13.
Whoa. My next question is, you see, it says perception. So should we take it serious? I mean, it's something people perceive and not necessarily a reality.
Well, I think that you should take it serious. You see, when the World Bank carries out its country policy and institutional assessment of Ghana, we take it serious, don't we? When the African Development Bank does its governance ratings of African countries, we take it serious. When the Economic Intelligence Unit comes out with its risk ratings, we take it serious. So we just use these ratings, this data, and did a statistical analysis and arrive at the figure. And we focus on corruption questions. So why would we take it if the original sources are taken serious?
But Vitus, if we are looking at perception, and if you look at how media, newspaper headlines, and radio morning shows are, we love sensation, blow it out of proportion so you can get listeners. We will make a perception that, this is the worst there is, and it doesn't get. So maybe the reality is not true.
Well, depending on how you look at it, some will say it's more than we have reported. Some will say Ghana should have done better, depending on whether you are on which side of the political divide you are. But the point is that, as I said, these are reputable institutions that have been doing annual assessments of various countries. And sometimes donors use their assessments to decide whether they continue to give support to the country or not. So if those assessments have been accepted by our governments and are being used for grading, why should this one not be? This is an aggregate, a composite of all these assessments that they have been doing. In any case, when you listen to radio, when you listen to TV, you read newspapers, you see the reports of allegations of corruption. Of course, so that means that, well, then it means we should plan worse. But we also see governments promising that they are doing 1, 2, 3, all that. So on either side, you have a case to say, well, we should have done worse because of those reports. But on the other side, you say that, well, government has taken a number of steps. They have made pronouncements that they are going to do. So this is the actual situation. And even though we call it perception, it's not too far away from the reality. If, for example, people ask, when you went to a hospital, did you have to pay a bribe? And you said you paid a bribe. Or if yes, you paid a bribe, they come and answer, you definitely give a ranking of a score of corruption. Mm-hmm. So I think that the essence of our releasing these reports is to alert our governments and our countries that corruption is a problem and that we need to do something about it. And you see, you probably do not just need to look at this alone. You look at other corruption reports that have come out. In July, we released the Global Corruption Barometer. In October, we released the Global Corruption Report, which focuses on education. Now, you need to put all these together, and if the costs come to around the same thing, then it will be funny for one to think that, the results are not reliable.
Okay, thank you. Let me come to the studio and speak to Roland. Roland,
yes.
52 countries on the continent. Only 6 countries beat us. We should be patting ourselves in the back, probably dressed white as you are, and jubilating on the street that we have arrived. Why are we not jubilating?
Yeah, I think if you look at the ranking and even want to do an analysis of the Corruption Perception Index over the years, you will say that Ghana is doing well because if you look at the way we have always been hovering around the same place over the past 6 years. And if you look at Sub-Saharan Africa, if we were running an Olympics or football, we wouldn't have actually scored or, let's say, have gold or cup in terms of corruption. However, if you look at the trend, then you see we are probably not doing well, because if you are stagnating, I don't think that there's any sign of progress. So over the years, even though our position is not the worst in Africa, but we have not made improvement in terms of moving away from their positions, because corruption is not something that any country wants to be associated with. And therefore, you don't want to remain at the same position all the time. So in that vein, I would say that it's not something we should pat ourselves at the back and then maybe celebrate that we have moved one point ahead. Yeah.
Well, and you're a researcher.
Yes.
On the screen, if I can get it back on the screen,
yes.
Denmark is always that, Finland and Sweden and Norway, and they're always there.
Yes.
What are they doing that we are not doing? Why can't we, come a bit close?
Yes. If you look at those countries, the systems are working. I haven't traveled there, but I've read that if you look at those countries, the system works. And then secondly, you also realize that the institutions is the institutions that work, not the individual. If you compare those countries and Ghana, you realize that the political hand, the individual hand in everything is higher in Ghana than in those countries. So let's say the public servants that do their work, and no matter your color, your height, your political affiliation, if you are supposed to be punished because you engage in corruption, you'll be punished. They won't come out and sing songs to be that this is an MPP or NDC. It won't be that this belongs to this tribe or this belongs to that, or this is my old school boy or that. So you look at those countries, their systems work, no matter who. So you realize that you have reports of like high-profile politicians being prosecuted because they've been engaged in corruption. The same cannot be said of Ghana. You would realize that institutions work independent of what political party is in power.
So now that we're dealing with a perception index,
yes,
would this be the perception or would this be a reality?
Yeah, I wanted to come to the issue of perception. We label it perception, but in reality, I would say it's close to reality. Why? Because corruption is something that is done in the secret. So there's no way you can actually know the amount of corruption that is going on. If me and you is involved in, we are involved in corruption, if I report it, I'll be in trouble. If you report it, you'll be in trouble. Therefore, you wouldn't report it. However, people who engage in corruption, who want to report it without necessarily saying that, yes, I did. So in actually doing research in cases like this, we use the term perception. But it's close to reality. Because if you look at people who argue that, maybe it's more like Vital was saying, it's more or less. But in this particular index, it's talk about public sector corruption, administrative and political corruption. Very specific. So if you want to understand it in that context, then you would then know that probably it's not looking at the public sector corruption, it's not extending it to petty corruption, all that. So it is looking at just a public sector and public sector corruption. I was also explaining that, for example, if I give bribe to obtain services, and then you come out and you ask me, have you been involved in a bribe? Do you think I will say it? But if I ask, do you think there's bribery and corruption? I would say yes. I think there is. So we should not water down the impact or let's say the value of this index by saying that it's a perception and it's not a reality. Isn't that if you ask anybody in the street, is there corruption in Ghana? What would be the response?
I have an inset of interviews from MPs who think that, look, all these things are, some people sit out there who've been paid and they have to write something. So they wrote something, and I don't know if it's ready so we can play, and then I'll go to Vitus and ask. Okay, let's watch the MPs.
Fix my statement with ordinarily, I would say this is good news. Good news because 1 point or 0.1 drop in any situation is welcome, because at least it shows an improvement. But as you rightly said, how significant is this 1 point drop to our performance in the fight against corruption? All this is that the barometer they use to do these studies is perception. It's perception, and perceptions derive from what people think about what is going on around. So I would say that maybe it is one step forward, two steps backwards. I'm saying this because just last weekend, the weekend that just passed, and yesterday and today, things that have been happening in Ghana, doing the rounds around the airwaves, is that the seat of government was so much embroiled in the sale of the merchant bank. You see, to the extent that the president's name has been mentioned. And you know how information flies. If these people should come today to conduct another survey on perception index, we will jump, I can, trust me, we will jump 2 or 3 steps forward, not backwards. What this tells us is that we are nowhere near the point where we can say that we are fighting corruption, because they say fish rots from the head. And if these things are happening right at the seat of government, that is my only worry.
Well, I have not read the report. Maybe the countries might have gone up and the number would have increased. Maybe last year, if they consider about 200 countries, maybe this year around it's about 300 countries. So we have to be clear with the report, whatever is contained in the report. Because if the total number last year was 180 and you were 45, and this time it was 250 and 46, you haven't moved anywhere.
In as much as we all get worried when we are performing badly in the aspect of corruption, we should also be very proud if we are doing well. Though it is not as we all want it, but I think that it is quite significant. A point is not any mean achievement. But I know, and as you all agree with me, that the government has, or the president has shown a total commitment to the fight of corruption in this country. It is evidently clear. All the measures he's put in place, it is evidently clear. For once, I have not seen any president under his administration who will institute a commission or a committee to probe into matters of his.
I don't know the criteria they use in determining whether the index is up or down. But I can tell you one thing, is the way we are lambasting ourselves, the president, ministers and others, I think we are taking advice from those kind of insults and harassments. That's why people are thinking of at least going down on their corruptible activities. Sorry. If like we can rise to about 10 more points up from 46 to about 56 thereabouts.
Well, we heard those reports there. Have I got Vitus on the phone still?
Yes, I'm on.
Very good. Vitus, depending on where you are, 1 point is a great stride. And if you're not on that side, then 1 point is absolute rubbish. I mean, so where do we stand?
Well, you need to look at, in statistics, we have what we call the standard error.
Mm-hmm.
And for this, standard error is plus and minus 3.2. So an increase of 1 or a drop of 1 is not significant. It's only an increase of 3.2 or more that is significant, or a decrease of 3.2 or more is a significant decline. So 1 increase is not just that you go backwards. To use the current calculation, we in 2011, but in 2012 we came to 45, and we just gone back to the same thing. The same system that we had in 2011. So we should not be excited about one. We have never even reached the 50% pass mark. If you read the you get better than 50, you say that they failed. So I think that
Vitus, I'm losing. If you can just reposition yourself a little bit, because I'm losing you there.
Okay. If I'm saying that, if you look at the standard error, for this report, the standard error is 3.2, plus or minus 3.2. So when you increase by just 1 point, it's far less than 3.2.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is not something that we should be excited about. It should just serve as a reminder that we have a lot of work to do in the fight against corruption.
Brothers, I'll stay with you. Aren't we running the risk of becoming immune? You know, they'll tune in this evening to PM Express. There's Nana Sakwasa. They're talking about corruption again. Oh, corruption. Let me go and watch, you know, some concert party and let them stop talking about corruption. Are we not getting people intoxicated on corruption? I will give the question to you, Roland. Aren't we going on every day, corruption? So people, oh, well, that's another corruption. Let's move on another day.
No, I think otherwise. The issues of corruption, as the media, is very critical in terms of if you want to win the tide against corruption. One, as I said, corruption thrives in darkness. So by talking about it, you are putting the light on it. And once you put light on it, those who are going to engage in it, I'm not saying that it will stop, but it would reduce. One, and even given our culture, if somebody is engaged in corruption, and let's say if the person is not even for a prosecutor, I'm not saying that it's not right to prosecute, and even that is brought to the media or brought to the public, it's a kind of deterrent. Mm-hmm. And as you can realize, the fact that there are a lot of talk about corruption doesn't mean that there's an increase in corruption. Mm-hmm. And I'm of the view that it is good that there are a lot of issues of corruption coming up. Because sometimes the corruption issues are there, but they're just nobody wants to talk about it because they think about the consequences, political consequences, and therefore sometimes the issues are just under the carpet. But we as journalists, we as citizens, we as civil society, we need to go and fish out this. We need to bring it to the public agenda. We need to bring it to our homes that we talk about corruption. Because then it becomes the agenda. When it becomes the public agenda, then it becomes government agenda. And then become a political capital, which positively we can explore, and then it could have an effect.
Roland, they gave me a graph on the screen. If they can give it back to me, okay, so we can just explain to viewers what it is. But the red marks are, you know, the highly corrupt countries, and yes, then obviously the lighter ones are those that are not so corrupt. I mean, look at Russia. Is that not Russia?
Yes.
That's fairly red, isn't it?
Yes.
And then our continent, I think Botswana's
a bit
lighter down there.
Yeah.
But I think Ghana is a bit bright.
Yes, brighter among
its peers in
yes,
there. But, you know, the red ones are basically the bad. So, I mean, the whole continent is struggling.
Yes. If you look at that's what I was saying, that if you look at Ghana's position and then the marks that we scored, I think we are doing better than our neighbors.
And they are really struggling, aren't they?
If you look at the average score for for the whole of Sub-Saharan Africa, it's 33, and we are scoring 46. So you understand that at least we're at a higher ground in terms of the battle against corruption. However, I'm of the view that I'm looking at it in terms of progress, because we are not making progress in terms of moving.
Before you move on to progress, you know,
yes,
there we are, you know, yourself and myself pointing fingers.
Yes.
Oh, they are corrupt, they are corrupt, they are corrupt. But it is you and I who go to the offices and give the 5 CDs and the 20 CDs. Oh, let me put some weight on the envelope for you.
Yes.
And then we sit and say, they are corrupt. When are we going to do the education so that we realize that we are actually a part of it?
Exactly. Thank you very much. I think when we say corruption, people are always pointing finger at the politicians and then maybe the senior government officials. As I said, because we are talking about this particular perception there, which is talk about public corruption, I've always reiterated that there are other forms of corruption which are more literal, and I mean the effect is very high in terms of, especially on the poor, than even the political corruption. One I would say, for example, is like if you go to hospital and then because you go to buy a drug and they give you fake drugs, this can just kill you immediately. However, this is not the political corruption. It is petty corruption or petty corruption. Or you go to hospital and then you have a national health insurance card and you are denying health care because somebody wanted you to tip the person. Or a poor person who goes to renew his card and is asked to put something and it's unnecessarily delayed and the person not able to access health. The consequences are far-reaching. and probably more than political corruption. However, because the media always want issues to deal with politics, everything is one tied to politics. Those type of corruption doesn't attract the sympathy of the public as it should. Meanwhile, I was doing some research in Norway region, and somebody pointed to 2 groups of children. He allegedly said that they were given fake anti-snake bite injection.
Sad.
So, and my heart I just said, what? How much is the person going to gain from selling these fake drugs to this person? How much?
Wow.
Can look at the lives of these 2 children. So you realize that when we talk of corruption, we may point to the higher authority, we may point to big politicians, big civil servants, but we are all engaged in it in one way or the other. In the family, at church, in our day-to-day lives, we are engaged in corruption. However, I'm not thinking that I want to point, not just point fingers, but to blame everybody. But I think that everybody is kind of prone to being corrupt. However, there must be punitive measures that put in place that would deter people to not to engage in corruption. When those punitive measures are not there, then you have the escalation of corruption at various levels, at every aspect of life. And that is the big issue.
Roland, I mean, there's, as they say, there's no smoke without fire.
Yes.
But every time this index comes out,
yes,
political parties, police, judiciary, they don't escape the net. And they are constantly coming. And anytime you interview them, if I was to call a police PRO now, he will tell you, oh, no. Forget it. If you were to call the police, everybody says, oh, no. But every time this index comes out, these groups, especially in the public sector, come out, and they come up tops. What are they doing, to redeem themselves or wean themselves of this stigma?
Yes. As I said, corruption is a crime, and also a bad it's a bad image. So, there are few people who would accept it. However, I've realized a culture in our part of the world that even when issues come and people know that it's true, but because they're looking at the ramification, they would deny it, but they will go ahead to actually push some measures to improve or to work towards improving the system. And as somebody who works in the civil society sector, and most of the time when we come out with reports or when we come out with cases, the government or other stakeholders who are affected would come and deny. But in the next moment, you realize that they will have put in some reforms or put in some measures to make sure that there's no repeat. And you realize that the police, after even the last one, came out and said that they came out with measures. See that they won't say that they are responding to that, but they said they will come out with measures to some corruption in the police service, and also improve the image of the police service. So you will see that it has effect, and they know that it's right. If you listen to the comments from the MPs, you realize that there's a bit of a denial, but in genuine terms, if you listen to, if you analytical look at it, they are accepting that yes, what the study is saying is true. Because the fact that the person says, "Oh, I have not looked at the details of the report, but the issues of corruption and that there have been these cases, and that if they come back, if you say it's not credible, do you think that if they come back now, maybe they might have a higher, a lower score?" Then you are admitting that the method they are using is credible.
I think I have Vitus on the phone now. Hello, Vitus.
Hello.
Good. Vitus, the conversation still goes on, but what I want to find out is what measures have we put in place to reduce this, and are they working? Because we seem to be where we are, and sometimes even the situation on the ground looks even worse than what the report actually is.
Well, when you look at the good performers, the high performers like them, the Nordic countries, Finland, Norway, they have certain measures in place. One has a long-standing economic and social stability, which we can also have. Then they have traditions of openness in public affairs. They have decided that once public is open, there's strong freedom. And they have a broad consensus that integrity and accountability should basis of their democracy. So it's put in place measures that they will use to detect and punish corruption. Unfortunately, we have some laws in place, we have established some institutions, but we have not been very serious about putting in place measures that will detect and punish corruption. Even when there are allegations, there's delay in the investigations, a lot of pressure is put on the authorities to investigate. And then when they investigate, when it comes to sanctions, it is passing the buck. I'm asking the Attorney General to do this and all that. And we don't see the action. And that's what is it. And you make it very unattractive, an unprofitable venture in terms of being prosecuted, being imprisoned, recovery of stolen assets and all that. We don't do this. It happen. And so if we want to increase our score, we need to put this copy the high performance.
Francis, I'm going to go for a break and come back. But this is the question I'm putting to you before I go, is that, here we are, myself, yourself, we all sat here, lamenting on this issue. But if tomorrow morning we woke up and an MPP member or an NDC member ran through red light and so the police took him, we would all go to that police station and say, release him because he got a party card. How do we solve this problem? Stay tuned. I'm coming straight back. Hello and welcome back to the discussion. We're looking at Ghana's inch forward positively towards eradicating corruption. Even though they say 1 point is not significant enough because the margin of error is 3.2% back or forward. So when you inch forward, it's nothing. But it's still forward, and that's what we're talking about. Again, the whole of Africa, there was only 6 countries that beat us. We also beat everybody else in Africa. So we may not be as bad as we are. But just before we went on the break, I was saying that even though we jump up and down and ring our radio stations and lament in the bars and lament in trotros about how bad corruption is, if we hear that there's an individual arrested and the person happened to be from one political divide, every person who has a political card, Roland, troops down to the police station and said, free our man because he's on our side. Not because he didn't do it or anything, we have proof. No. This guy is a member of our party, so free him. So how do we help fight corruption with this attitude?
Yes. I think the politicization of corruption.
You need to conclude with me because my battery is running out.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I still had Vitus on. Vitus, then I'll put that question with you. I'll put that question to you. I'm sorry. How do we fight corruption? When because of politics, we always troop down to institutions or the police say, free this individual because he's on our side.
Well, I think the ruling party must give the example. If a member of your party does something wrong or is engaged in politics and you arrest the person and investigate and prosecute the person, next time you have somebody from the other side does it, and you do the same thing, nobody's going to accuse you of being partisan. So that is one thing. You must make sure that the rules work, the procedures are followed. But on our side, our civil society and the media, we must also educate, sensitize our people to understand that corruption is not partisan. That it is harmful to the country, whether you are for Party B or Party A. So I think at least if we use these two, when you have powerful soldiers going to rampage and burn cars, and you do nothing about it, tomorrow, if the other party does that, you have no moral basis to do something to them. And that is where the political commitment is a problem. Our politicians must actually show the commitment to fight corruption, no matter who is involved. Even if it's your brother or your sister, you must prove that, yes, this person has done the wrong thing, and that this action I'm taking against that person.
But that is tough, though, because then it means they will come back and bite you, and they don't want to do that. So how would we ever get out of this culture?
Well, we have to get out of it in a way because you don't have to think that because today you have left a president or a minister, you must remain there forever. It's not a private business. If you do what is right according to your conscience, you are even likely to move than if you continue to just go to what the party people tell you. So we need people that are determined, who say that this is the right thing, I'm going to do this right thing. And you may even get people from the opposition admiring you and voting for you. So the political commitment is a very important part of all this.
Thank you very much, Vice Chancellor. Thank you. But you were making a comment on that, Roland.
Yes, I think I agree with Vitus' assessment. If you look at the country, almost all the corruption issues are politicized. And one way or the other, you could see that because they're politicized, then become ineffective in terms of actually punishing those who are actually involved in corruption. The other issue I want to add to what Vitus said is that we need to allow the institutions to work. If the institutions are working and there's no any political hand intervention, like those unnecessary intervention, then irrespective of any person that is engaged in corruption, those institutions would work. But where we have a situation where the government in power frequently intervene in cases just to favor maybe somebody from his side, then realize that if you go to arrest somebody or you want to apply the rule to somebody from the other side, then there will be an outcry.
Make references.
Yes.
They'll make references.
Exactly.
You let
yes.
him go free, so I have to go free. And
that is also, it's talk about commitment, and that is the issue we have in Ghana. That if you look at issues of crime and even corruption, we look at when it comes to the bigwigs, the political heavyweights, we realize that the laws don't work. Because if you ask yourself, those that have committed crimes and they have political, they are politicians. What are they? How many of them are in prisons? Some of them, we spend the nation resources, go through to prosecute them, and the next moment they're out. So, and that is to send a message to the public that we as ordinary citizens shouldn't go around on rampage, going to support somebody who probably, when you are in that situation, he wouldn't come and visit you. Because if the next moment you are in the police station, that MP or that minister wouldn't come to visit you. So, as he said, we need to also educate ourselves, as citizens, as civil society, that we should be aware of some of this. And nobody benefits from corruption in the long run. And I've said this several times. Look, if you think that you can cheat, and therefore what the resources are meant to build schools, you would use it for your personal use. The resources are meant for hospitals, you would use it. One day, you can be in a Rolls Royce. Somebody will block with a gun because the person was not able to get a good education and shoot you and take that Rolls Royce away. If you think that you can even build a house where you have everything in it, you would one day see the besieged by those who lost because of your corrupt act. So in the long run, nobody benefits. Look at the chaos we have in other African countries, DR Congo, Central Africa, and all that. Look at their presidents. What are they? They have to run from their country. Look at what happened in Kenya. It's all because of corruption. So when there's corruption, in the long run, everybody is going to suffer, and those who even benefit will suffer even more. So it behoves on us all to put all our hands in or on deck to work hard to make sure that we fight corruption in wherever we found it. And I think the institutions, as I keep emphasizing institutions, that institutions work. I'm saying that I'm fighting against corruption, but I couldn't engage in corruption. But if the laws take its course, I would be very mindful that, even if I found myself in this situation, these are the ramifications. And if I face it the next time, I'll be more careful.
I don't know if I still have Vitus on the phone. I know he wanted to go. But do I still have Vitus? I think it's good. Okay. You see, I know you've mentioned politicization a few times.
Yeah.
Look at the merchant bank sale coming.
Yeah.
I don't want to even discuss the merit of it.
Yeah.
But everybody who's NDC says there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Everybody who's MPP says there's everything wrong. So, there's no even middle ground.
Yes.
It makes it difficult. When we are so polarized, it makes it difficult for you to even begin to... what do you... is there any Ghanaian here left? And what is he saying about the sale of the bank? Because of this strong divide.
Yes. When we say polarization and strong divide, I think in another way we are actually contributing to that strong divide. In other parts of the country, when we have issues, we have what we call expert views. who are respected and are neutral. In this part of the country, when an expert comes out to actually give his point of view, we label the person.
Depending on where your experts favors.
Yes, you label the person. And sometimes, I would say that the media sometimes also contributes to it. That when there are issues, you go to look for a party's view and this party's view. And therefore, once you start that, the expert will not even like to come because then he has to come and then other talk against the person or in favor. But if there are issues and we go to the expert and said, okay, you are an expert in this particular area, what is your view? And the person can bring the opinion. But if every case, we have to look at it in terms of MPP and DC, we continue to have this case of political divide. And that even expert comes in, he would be, his voice or whatever opinion would be overshadowed by this political divide.
Well, how much have we ever quantified how much corruption costs us as a nation?
As a nation, no, but I think there are other World Bank has made attempts in terms of trying to quantify. I think there's a figure, but I don't have it offhand. Quantify what we lose to corruption. And it's huge. I mean, it's millions. I think I don't know the figure, I don't want to go, but I think about 70-something million for Africa. Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And that's you're looking at the financial loss. But if you look at it in terms of other losses, I was talking about loss of life, loss of, let's say,
this is just financial loss.
Yes. It is far-reaching. And I would say that if we're actually to tackle corruption and win at let's say 50%, I'm sure we'll have enough resources to go with it. We don't need donor resources. We don't do donor resources. And I think I will take this platform to register a point that this is an opportune time for Ghanaians to actually wake up and take corruption serious. Because one, we are in a middle income state. Secondly, as donor countries are facing problems, we will see that amount of resources we are getting from donor countries is going down. And then our governments are coming to us to say that we should pay more. But if we pay more, are we making sure that what we are giving out is actually used for what it's meant for and used efficiently? So if you give out more and you're not interested in how that is used, then I think there's a problem. So I think Ghanaians will wake up and say, look, I mean, recent increases, everybody's going to feel it. But it's not an issue of feeling it, but how are we, it's not about complaining, but how are we making sure that those resources are used for what it is supposed to be used for? So I think it is a wake-up call for all of us to come out to the realization that corruption is actually a big issue, and for us to actually devolve, we need to tackle it.
Roland, who needs more education, the giver or the receiver? Who needs more education in this campaign?
Everybody. Everybody. In our law, the giver and the taker are both guilty. And corruption is not a one-sided thing. It's because if there's a demand and there's a supply, then you don't have corruption. So therefore, both giver and then taker or both need education. Besides, you don't have a constant giver and a constant taker because it could change. So you could be a giver today, and then another moment you could be a taker, and therefore we all need to be educated. And I think also if we also look at our educational system and how we train the young ones to come up, moral education is going down, and therefore we are not actually concentrating on how they are brought up. And the issue of cheating in exams, as at the BEC, we have thousands of students that were suspended because they were involved in cheating. If we don't make them to realize that cheating is actually bad and punish them, then they'll go out to think that they can do anything with impunity. And that's why we see that when we get into public office, then we tend to think that that's the way to go. To be smart, it means to cheat. And then have your way, then it means you are smart. So when you do that, then they say, oh, you are a smart guy, and then they actually praise you for that. But if people are actually punished, and people are schooled, and people are actually painted black for engaging in cheating, engaging in corruption, then I think we'll go far.
Well, and here we are, championing a cause to clean up our country, less corrupt, let's make money so we can, get fair equity for everyone. But you hardly even hear a resignation. The Public Account Committee will come up with something really blatant and bad, and everybody is still going about happily ever after.
Yeah, you are right. I think in other part of the world, you see that even in the slightest agitation or allegation of corruption, the person will resign and allow due process to take place. And if the person is found not guilty, I mean, the person will take. Or you see, even in Israel, I mean, he has to resign. But here, as I said, it's also because of sometimes we may think that the politicians are but they listen to us. It's also because they find a way of making the public see it in a different angle. So as we talk about the politicization, if there's a political commitment and there's a precedent set, that would be continued. So I think we will call on the incumbent government to actually, if it shows commitment, to actually take that seriously. That if it's a public office, as Vice said, is engaged in corruption, that person to be dealt with seriously. And I think it will serve as a deterrent. And also, when an opponent and the opposition is involved, I mean, the same rules will apply. I also say that the politicization is a way of a kind of noise that is also overcrowding the genuine cry that we have. And therefore, we have to find a way of increasing the volume of the genuine cry so that we can reduce the noise. And the noise is the political we're talking about, that when the issue, the opposition then cry and say, oh, everything is bad, and not looking at the merit. And then the incumbent say, oh, everything is good, without looking at the merit. There must be the genuine cry of ordinary citizens who said, no, we want to know what is actually happening. And there should be openness. There should be openness in government. There should be openness in terms of information, and then so that we can have information. And then we can be the judges and say, okay, this is actually the government or the person involved is actually wrong or not. Not the information not open. One, the information not available to us. The right information not available to citizens. Two, the government is not open in terms of its dealings, and therefore we are left to speculate. And therefore, when there's speculation, anything that people say, you would what? You would take it. And the opposition, or let's say, those who are seeking for political benefit would see them, crying loud, and then drown the actual genuine cry that we have. Secondly, I want to also touch on the issue of Parliament, like the Public Accounts Committee. I think there's a good setup within our governance system, and they're supposed to actually serve as the guidance to our resource management. However, I think that our Parliament is a bit weak in terms of being able to play that role. So every year, I mean, this report come up, then there's an outcry that there's this amount of money that is lost, that this amount of resources that has been wastefully spent, and nothing at all happens because the setup is wrong. Because the Public Accounts Committee just reviews it, and what happens? There's no follow-up mechanism to follow up and make sure that those recommendations are actually implemented to the latter. Secondly, when you look at the Public Accounts Committee, their recommendations, they don't inform the next budget. So let's say if the Ministry A was involved in, let's say, embezzlement or mismanagement, and then they come and they're looking for money. Let's say if you were a company, or let's say you are in a family and you give money to one of your children, and then he goes or she goes and misuses and come back. Won't you ask, the money I gave you, how did you use it? Before giving the second money. But it's okay, no. There's no link between the audit and then the next budget. So it's just like that. It's like that. So it's business as usual.
We're just going to run out of time, but are we ever going to empower Chirag and all these other institutions so that they can do some work? At least they can do 5-10% for us while we do the rest. Is there the political will?
I think the government has, like the last few days, has announced some measures and also made some commitments. We are yet to see the reality. We cannot say that, okay, what are the impact of whether the person is committed or not. As we made a statement, we would actually want to monitor what the government, Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, would want to monitor the measures that government want to put in place to see how they work and some of the shortfalls, and see how we can all work together to address them.
Roland, thank you very much. Thank you very much for talking here. Roland's a researcher of the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition, and Vitus Azim, Executive Director of Ghana Integrity Initiative, also joined us on the phone earlier. As I say, as you're watching, take your phone, send a text 1466 to RTP KWAW. Roland, don't send a text. That's your corruption here on the show. Send a text for us. Who knows? We might even come back here with an award. Thanks for watching. And tomorrow is Wednesday. We'll be back to do it all over again.